You're wondering how Reebok lost. I want you to know that they won. Check out this chart from 1989. Let me fix it up. This is Reebok through 1987, and this is Nike. Notice which one's on top? For 3 glorious years in the 1980s, Reebok was the top shoemaker in the world. And look, in 1982, they had 3.5 million in sales. In 1987, they had 1.4 billion. And then they lost. What went wrong? This search took me to a woman playing tuba on a boat, 2 dueling CEO memoirs, Harvard Business School studies, space. I don't know, is this happening in space? And I learned why Reebok lost. I love these shoes, but they are actually kind of the wrong shoes for this video for 3 reasons that you'll learn by the end. But I didn't know that when I bought them. That's because I had a lot to learn about Reebok. I always saw Nike and Reebok as the shoe Coke and Pepsi. That couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is in Bury. This is where Reebok starts, an offshoot of J.W. Foster & Sons, a shoe company that goes back to 1895. I just want to point out where we are here. We're not in the USA. We're not in London. We are in Bury, okay? But these are still the shoes that won in the Olympics in 1924. In the late 50s, the Foster boys spun off to form their own shoe company. They called it Reebok after looking up cool, fast animals in the dictionary. That fact comes from Joe Foster's memoir, and honestly, I feel like I'm betraying him by saying that Reebok lost, but let's move on. Look at this ad. It's from 1987, but it's for Reebok's Fell Runners. I think it shows you what a profoundly British company this is. I mean, I had to Wikipedia, like what fell running is. Apparently it's running while English. Look at this 1980 ad. I mean, here, they are the British running shoe targeting the foul weather in England. They are also making these shoes for real in Bury with shoemaking machines. There's a whole section where he talks about how hard it was to get some of the shoe machinery up the stairs. Check out their lineup in 1979, 1980. You can see that they're doing a lot of training shoes. Their first real hit is the Aztec in the late 70s, but they're kind of just going after what they can find. Let me find this page for you. Always a good sign when your book has Norwegian Army in the index. This one page shows just how much they are hustling. He talks about how they had to make 20,000 pairs of trainers for the Norwegian Army, how they were making skateboard shoes, parachute boots, rowing shoes. They were desperate for any business that they could get. Meanwhile, Nike's Phil Knight makes it clear in his memoir that Nike... Wait a second. Am I quoting 2 CEO memoirs right now? Did I just become a LinkedIn post? Anyway, Phil Knight and Nike, they are totally different. He is a shoe importer, and he is an American, and he is a runner. Knight starts off importing Tiger running shoes as Blue Ribbon Sports, but then Nike has a hit with the Cortez. They build the legendary waffle sole with Bill Bowerman. Nike rides a running craze in the 1970s, and Reebok, they just try to stay alive in Bury. So how did this happen?
Hi, I'm Denise Austin.
Hi, but you're skipping ahead a little bit.
Take it up all the way and lift.
I feel oddly compelled to reach. No, we've got some groundwork to do. So in 1979, this guy, Paul Fireman, he becomes the North American owner of Reebok. Here he is in 1985, and he moves a lot of operations to Avon, outside of Boston. It kills me to portray the Fosters this way, but Paul Fireman is kind of the Ray Kroc to their McDonald brothers, the enterprising genius who makes their idea into a mainstream phenomenon. This is Jane Fonda's first aerobics video, and you might notice that it is very shoeless. That is part vibes, but it is also very practical. There weren't any real good aerobic shoes that were soft and supported side-to-side movement. Around the same time, a West Coast Reebok sales rep named Angel Martinez noticed that aerobics was popping up everywhere in California. Let me just hit home the lifestyle contrast here. Los Angeles, Bury. Los Angeles, Bury. He convinced Reebok to create the Freestyle. The shoe started like this, but it was unique. They used a softer hide than was normal, and it was lined with comfortable terry cloth. These holes added ventilation, and some wrinkles were left in for character. The shoe was really soft, really stylish, and unique. It was targeted to an entirely new athletic market, alongside style ticks like leotards, support tights, and leg warmers. Initially, the Freestyle was also primarily for women, a market that the testosterone-heavy shoe industry had kind of ignored. I mean, I'm sorry, but look at this ad. The Freestyle is literally right next to the Nike Penetrator. As it grew, Nike said aerobics wasn't a real sport. They ignored aerobics. Meanwhile, Reebok snagged an amazing influencer to kick off their new line of business. Denise Austin drove sales of this to a very devoted audience. Everybody involved credits her a lot. Reebok built off the success in a kind of indirect partnership with clothing brand Benetton. In 1985, they made these amazing high-top Freestyle shoes. Suddenly, Reebok owned aerobics and a corner of fashion. Sybil Shepherd wore them to the Emmys, Reeboks cameoed in Aliens, Whoopi Goldberg wore them in Jumping Jack Flash. I don't know why you would care about that, but I downloaded Jumping Jack Flash, so you're gonna have to hear about it.
Jumping Jack Flash.
Jumping Jack Flash?
By 1987, Reebok was the #1 shoe. So how did Nike catch up?
I run 17 miles every morning.
I can put my feet on the couch. I haven't worn these outside yet. I think that some commercials are all you need to understand the companies. In 1988, Nike launched Just Do It with this commercial. It's a guy running. And then Reebok launched UBU. Commercials I can barely even believe are real, which are just super weird.
Society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members.
It includes a bizarre number of elderly people. The point is, one was institutionally a performance company, and the other was institutionally a trend company. To be clear, Reebok had diversified some, even in the 80s. In 1987, aerobics represented 29% of their sales, down from being 56% in 1984. They were growing the pie. They continued to have huge success in aerobics. In the 80s and 90s, Reebok created the Step, this aerobics device, and promoted it with instructor Jen Miller. This video was huge and maybe dystopian, but the big breakthroughs in other areas, they were kind of gimmicky, like Reebok's pump shoe. So there's a risk here of downgrading and oversimplifying the failure of Reebok. I mean, in 2006, Adidas bought them for $3.6 billion, so they obviously were doing a few things right. But that same year, Nike was a $25 billion company. Why did Reebok lose? I think that the slogans should be flipped. Nike always said "you be you" to itself. When executives encouraged them to chase aerobics, they scoffed because it wasn't a real sport. And Reebok? They tried to dig out of aerobics through a shoe with a pump. They had this thing called Reeboks for the kids market. They launched a fashion brand called Metaphors. Whatever the idea was, Reebok said, just do it. Adidas sold Reebok to Authentic Brands Group in 2021, a company that basically manages orphan brands and makes shoes like these. You now know the 3 ways that these shoes are kind of wrong to tell the story in this video because they aren't women's shoes, they aren't aerobics shoes, and they aren't really made by Reebok. They're made by Authentic Brands Group. It's kind of a ghost company now. But there are details here that I still love. Authentic Brands has a lot of kind of crappy Reebok cross-promotion, but they have some cool ones too. So maybe that will let Reebok regain more modest ambitions where it succeeded as a fitness and fashion brand, not a big bad sports one. Reebok can become a brand for aging millennials who want to relive the decade in which they were born. Maybe Reebok will finally let you be you. Hey, what is up? I am editing this video together now. Thank you for watching. It occurs to me watching it that this is a bit more of a take than I realized it was when I wrote it, because I view the 70s and 80s as so determinative for the success and failure of Reebok and Nike. And you might view it differently. You might think that the Air Jordans should have more emphasis, or maybe we should talk about the pump shoes, which had surprisingly wide adoption in the NBA, despite the fact that it's like a crazy gimmick. So yeah, I'd be interested to get your feedback on why Reebok lost. My take comes from a lot of the research I did. I have links to the books and papers down in the description of this video. I seriously love the Joe Foster memoir, so maybe that biased me toward his period in history to some degree, but I thought it was so moving in an unexpected way. So yeah, check those out. I'll be recording the Patreon reaction video to this one right now. That's where I kind of tell about things that I left out, or various omissions. So if that's of interest to you, you can see that over there. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. And and this video was not sponsored. That should be clear. But I really do like those shoes. So I don't know. They're kind of cool.